ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, fans of all ages, to this Monday night edition of the AFC Northcast. The voice that you're hearing right now is Joey, and I'm joined tonight by my lovely co-host Chad.
You have to know your enemies, and that is why this podcast has to exist. Steeler Nation.
That's right. Keep your friends close. Keep your enemies close.
And your enemies around.
Yeah. Probably not good advice during COVID-19. You just want to keep everybody at 6 foot distance.
Yeah, they're arresting fools for that kind of stuff now. So you can't even do it as a joke.
Ridiculous.
You can't even make jokes about that stuff.
Oh heavens. All right. On the agenda for today, we're going to start off, and we are dedicating, at least within the division, one whole episode to the Ravens draft. They probably had like a third of the divisional draft picks. So we're going to run through all 10 draft picks, and we're even going to talk briefly about some undrafted free agents, because the Ravens have a 16-year streak of UDFA making the 53-man roster. So more than any team in the league, it's probably relevant, shortened offseason aside. So after that, we're going to go around the league a little bit. We'll hit the East divisions in both conferences, and then we will talk about the NFC South. And
if we get to it, we'll see.
Tampa Bay, the Tampa Bay Gronkaneers. I got it. There it is.
You got it. Nailed it. Super Bowl bound.
Maybe. Gronk is still the 24/7 champion in the WWE.
Well, I think we have one likely guy that could try and take that title during the season, but he's probably going to be one of the last people we talk about. I have a feeling. We'll get to that, though. Keep it in the back of your mind, listeners.
We'll get to the wrestling. If anybody has any guesses, let us know.
What are you drinking tonight, Joey?
I'm drinking nothing. I'll show you what I've got on the table here. I've got a sippy cup full of water and a bigger boy version sippy cup full of water. So
nice. Very good. Well, I will be the booze of us tonight. I'm going to drink a little Squish Pale Ale from Cinderlands.
That's not a good word for like something you consume, squish.
But just observe the can art there. It's got some nice modern kind of feel to it. For those that only listen on the podcast, you can trust my judgment. It's a nice looking label, and it's a pale ale. And, you can only name so many different things. There's only so many words, so you just have to start using the bad ones eventually. So we're just going to hope it tastes good. And it does. Thank you, Jason, for this beer. You know who you are.
All right. Well, like the Ravens are going to squish the competition this year, especially after cementing themselves as the lead horse in the pack after the only graded A draft that Mel Kiper handed out this year. The only one.
Let me ask you this. If the Steelers had drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round like he predicted, do you think he would have given the Steelers an A? Because I wouldn't have given a flying F about it.
All of that aside, the Ravens had a really good draft, and despite preaching not drafting need, and despite my despair, like the 5 picks before theirs in the first round this year, the Ravens had some really good players at needed positions fall to them and become incredible value. And they also were in this position that we talk about with good teams where it's easy to find value when you can draft luxuriously.
Sure.
And the Ravens definitely did a lot of that. So we can start with the beginning of the night. We talked in the pre-draft podcast about my crush on Cesar Ruiz, the offensive lineman from Michigan. He played center, but it was likely he's likely to move to guard if he needed to. Um, and he got drafted, I think, 2 or 3 spots. He went to the Saints, who were also like a one of the teams everybody was talking about taking a linebacker. So they were already like in competition with the Ravens for picks as far as the Ravens were concerned. It was like, all right. And then I had talked about Kenneth Murray gone off the board before that. But I talked about liking him more than I liked Patrick Queen. And then it was like, well, like if Murray's gone, maybe day 2 you can sneak in there and grab Jordan Brooks, Texas Tech, production machine, uh, sideline to sideline, tackling everything in sight. And the Seattle Seahawks had the pick right before the Ravens. And I'll be goddamned if Jordan Brooks didn't get drafted right before the Ravens pick. I was like, what is this?
It was so great to watch for me. Just like I knew the Ravens were probably going to get a good player and it wouldn't really matter, but just like your raw disappointment and how unlikely it was that those players would all be gone. Um, it might be the high point of the season for me when it comes to the Ravens. It might have just happened on day 1 of the draft. It
And
was really funny.
you were like 10 seconds ahead of me on the
Yeah.
broadcast, so you knew, and you were
Yeah.
able to just bask in it.
Yeah. I was like, you're gonna like this one, Joey. You're gonna this is gonna you're gonna be
And
thrilled.
never did I fathom that it was going to be Jordan Brooks, because I just
Yeah.
kind of wrote him off out of the first round. And
Yeah,
um,
he was a guy that, he was on the come up, kind of leading up to the draft in
yeah,
terms of media, and you're thinking third round, maybe second round, and there goes Pete Carroll, doing crazy stuff.
hey, that's the AFC Northcast rub right there.
There you go, Cesar Ruiz too, because we both liked him.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
maybe he'll get to the Steelers. Ha ha ha.
So, with the 28th pick of the first round in the 2020 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens selected linebacker from LSU, Patrick Queen. Um, I have consistently gotten more excited about this pick since it was made. Um, I was pretty lukewarm about it when the Ravens made it, but I think it's eased a little bit by my feelings about it by a pick they made later in the draft. Um, but yeah, I mean, Patrick Queen is kind of one of your prototype type of guys. He's one of your modern linebackers. He's a little undersized. He's incredibly athletic. He's very versatile. And I kind of dumped on him for all of that. And I also dumped on him for only having a year of production at LSU.
Kind of half a year.
Yeah, yeah. So I do believe in hindsight that he was probably pretty clearly the best player left on the board as far as where everybody thought guys were going to go. And he filled a need for the Ravens. So um, he gave credence to telling his friends and family that he wasn't going to get drafted by the Ravens because the Ravens have never drafted a player from LSU. Ozzie Newsome is a Crimson Tide alum, and I guess the rivalry was alive and well. Ozzie Newsome loves his Alabama players, and they never drafted an LSU Tiger. So he's the first one, and he seems to have the right attitude. I think that an organization like the Ravens, them drafting him kind of gives instant credibility to his game.
Yeah, he's
How do you see it?
um I'd say the one big accolade that came from Dane Brugler was he has outstanding play speed. So he is going to, as they say, go sideline to sideline. Like he will always be around the play. And that's a really good quality in a middle linebacker. That's what you want. Um, Another big bonus is that he is 20 years old. He will turn 21 sometime during this season or leading up to it. So he's a very young player. Um, this is kind of like the for us Steelers people, the Juju effect, right? He's had
Yeah.
two productive. He's younger than a lot of the rookie wide receivers that are coming out right now. So that's a really good. If the Ravens were to consider putting big money on a second contract for this guy in 4 years, they control him for 5, but they probably sign the extension 4 years out. I know what I'm talking about, people here. I know what I'm talking about. He'd still be young. You know, this is a guy that's going to be 25 years old when he starts his second contract. So you can get a lot of life out of this player. But he's probably going to require an extremely short leash this year. You're going to have, we're going to talk about this over and over again, but, you know, very limited offseason. Middle linebackers, you know, need to really know what's happening in a 3-dimensional way. There's a lot happening behind them that they need to be involved with, and in front. They need to be very cognizant and aware of everyone's jobs. It's a big, important role on the field when you're experienced. So I think the Ravens will counter that by giving him a very direct and singular purpose on each and every snap that he is on the field to limit the possibility for errors. And to, again, to relate it to the Steelers, they drafted a player higher in the draft, but because he's bigger and faster and probably better than Patrick Queen, Devin Bush, and he made a lot of tackles last year, but he also made a lot of mistakes, and they kept the communication role away from him for the whole year. We'll see what happens this year, but I would expect very similar results from Patrick Queen. He might be pretty productive, might make a lot of tackles, but I'd expect to see some mistakes mentally. And for the Ravens to probably try and limit the type of role he has, especially early in the season, in order to limit those mistakes. When I watched his highlights, I thought he was really fun to watch because of the play speed. Um, it's all about shooting gaps for him. You know, you get a gap and he will fly. He will just explode through it, make a tackle for a loss. He blows up every single slow developing play, like screen passes, draw plays, anything that takes time is time wasted because he will blow it up. And I think that that's great because the Ravens have an excellent defensive line. So if they scheme to create those gaps for him, he's very capable of making explosive plays for the defense if his purpose is singular and he follows directions. I think he can. So I think he'll be a really good player for the Ravens, maybe with a little bit of a rocky start potentially, which I think you could say about most rookies this year.
Yeah, I think the that's the one note that I took from watching his highlight tapes. I wrote down that he's a monster in the screen game.
Yeah.
Like I feel like half of his highlight is tackling screens for losses. Like it was all over the place, and like yeah, he made like that nice pick against Tua, against Alabama this year. That's like a big highlight that goes around a lot about him, and he was everywhere against Clemson in that game. But man, like just an absolute terror in the screen game.
Yeah.
So I listened to Eric DeCosta's interview on the Ravens teams podcast. I don't know if it's still called The Lounge or not.
Yeah.
So I'm going to reference DeCosta a lot, which we've transitioned from in Ozzy we trust to in DeCosta we trust. So he said that Queen was, he called him, quote, a DNA match. He said that both coaches and scouts thought that he was the best player available when they got there, and it filled a need. And so they jumped all over it, and they were really happy with the pick. But he also went out of his way to say that Queen and Malik Harrison, he believes, can both be starting linebackers for this team eventually and for a long time. And I think that's really important. And especially with this offseason, like give these times guys some time to get acclimated. The Ravens are building a pretty stellar defensive line. The back end is already very strong, so that's good. And LJ Fort's there. These guys can learn. The Ravens really like to fill each position room with like a vet, a guy in their prime, and a young guy at least, and then kind of just fill in the gaps wherever they can. So they signed that linebacker from Green Bay, Jake Ryan, and he'll be your prime age guy, I guess, with Fort being the vet, and then two young studs in the linebacker room.
Yeah, you bring the guy in from Green Bay, and then you bring the rookies into a meeting with the coach by themselves, and you tell those rookies, like, we
Don't
expect you to
fucking
beat
listen
this
to this
guy.
guy.
Like, no,
Yeah, yeah,
listen to him, but beat him. Like, we
yeah,
brought him here for you to beat him. But if you can't handle that, then you're not going to play.
yeah.
But you're here to beat him. Now, they won't say that necessarily about LJ Fort yet. I think LJ Fort has another probably a year, if not
Yeah.
maybe 3/4 of a year, of kind of being the lead guy in the linebacker room. But the Green Bay guy, Steelers do this too. They say that they're not going to draft a position of need, and then they take a veteran. They, Eric Ebron, Mark Barron, but whatever, list goes on. But then they draft it anyway. And then you come in, and I don't have any actual evidence of this, but they do it. They tell the rookies, go beat him, go beat him, go take the job. We don't give rookies jobs. You don't get given things. You earn it. You earn it by beating a professional. So, yeah, I think Patrick Queen. I mean, he's their first round pick, so he's going to get plenty of playing time. Hopefully, and almost certainly, because you got Wink. He's going to give him tasks that he can handle, and he's very athletic. Only slightly smaller and slower than Devin Bush, so very good athlete, just below Devin Bush level athleticism. So obviously you've got godlike, and then you got really, really great. You should be super proud of yourself for having such a great athlete. um so yeah, we're psyched about Patrick Queen. He should be fun to watch. Shall we move on to the next pick?
We shall. We will move on to the pick that Eric DaCosta called the biggest surprise of his draft. The fact that this gentleman was still on the board. Round 2, pick 55, J.K. Dobbins from the Ohio State University. I don't know if Ohio State's the one that does that, right? They say the
Well,
Ohio State.
Miami is the one that does it, and Ohio State's the
Well,
one that acts like they're trying to be cool and sort of
yeah.
does it.
Miami says the U.
Right.
So shotgun running is this guy's big jam. You know what the Ravens did more than anybody in the league last year? Running out of the pistol and the shotgun. He kind of, everybody's saying that he kind of combines Gus Edwards and Justice Hill into one guy. Basically, this pick is going to solidify the running backs room. It's going to be Ingram, Dobbins, Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, and we'll talk about maybe one other guy that can make his money on special teams, maybe, or somewhere else like that. But the Ravens said they had 4 running backs with first-round grades. It was Edwards-Helaire, who went in the first round, DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor, and all those guys were gone when pick 55 rolled around, and J.K. Dobbins was still there. The difference in that 4 years makes, let me read you 2 running backs. The first one had 289 carries in his senior year, or his last year in college. 289, 1,821 yards for an average of 6.3 yards a carry and 23 touchdowns. The next running back had 301 carries for 2,003 yards, 6.7 yard average, and also 23 touchdowns. The first running back got drafted number 4 overall, Ezekiel Elliott. the second running back is J.K. Dobbins. So, like, this guy's a production machine. He's got breakaway speed. I mean, I'm so I'm so pumped for J.K. Dobbins. The speed on the Ravens offense is going to be insane this year.
So I'm going to be honest. And as I'm being honest, I think we're going to disagree a little bit. And
Okay.
I'm going to bring you down to earth. But first, I'll say some positive things, starting with Miller's assessment. One, he's eager. He's an eager lead blocker in with quarterback design runs. That's a quote from Dane Brugler. So that's good.
Ooh.
That's good, right? We do a
Yeah.
lot of that in Baltimore.
Yeah.
And he's good in pass protection. So he's going to be trustworthy on the field. I know that that's a priority for the Steelers, but I believe that the Ravens prioritize those sort of things too. I think it all kind of harkens back to Harbaugh's special teams coaching. You know, like you get on the field when you can do your job as it is defined by me. And part of being a running back is protecting the quarterback sometimes. So that's going to be helpful for him to get on the field, which is a big deal because the running back room is crowded.
Yeah.
Like Mark Ingram and Gus Edwards like have proven that they don't need anyone else. Like this was icing, this J.K. Dobbins. Like
Yeah.
you would be perfectly fine with the running back situation if he wasn't on the team. Let's be honest with ourselves. So that's good. That's going to help him get on the field. Now, when I watched his tape, and I watched it a little bit because I thought the Steelers had a chance of taking a running back, and then I watched it out of obligation so that I could do this podcast. No, it was fun. I thought that he did a nice job setting up his blocks, but without really loitering. So we're not talking about like a Le'Veon Bell situation. Like he's on the move, you know. But he allows blocks to happen before he just runs through. So I think he has a nice level of patience for that offense. Um, he has good vision, which kind of goes along with that. He's strong. If you watch the highlights, you don't tackle this guy from the shoulders. You just don't do that. Many have tried; they all fail. Like he's very sturdy. He's got a good center of gravity, or whatever you want to say about it. But like if you try to tackle him high, it's very laughable every time. And what was the last thing I said? He gets caught from behind every time. I don't know where this breakaway speed stuff comes from. I watched so many people catch him from behind. Like,
What?
yeah. He gets caught from behind. Like, he gets caught from behind, Joey. He is not, like, here's a newsflash to every single analyst and columnist and person that wrote that this guy is a home run hitter. He's not a home run hitter in the NFL. I'm just telling you right now. Like, he got caught and tackled like from behind or like guided out of bounds, like on the regular on long runs. And guess what? He had a lot of long runs because Ohio State's offensive line is savage. So much like Jonathan Taylor, he'd run through a giant hole and then eventually some corner or safety would like kind of drag him out of bounds or whatever. Like I'm telling you, like he might be kind of fast, but he's not Chris Johnson. He's not Justice Hill. Like frankly, he's probably like Mark Ingram. Like he can run, and then he can do long runs and score, but he will also get caught. So I am in no way intimidated by his breakaway speed. You heard it here first. Not intimidated. I could chase him down.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, if he turns into Mark Ingram and Mark Ingram moves on, that's quite all right with me. I'll take J.K. Dobbins if he is career Mark Ingram.
Yeah, and honestly, like I'm not particularly worried about this player from like your draft has a lot of good players in it. People that I'm concerned could impact my life negatively as a Steeler fan for years to come. I have almost no worry whatsoever about J.K. Dobbins this year, and I will tell you why. And I didn't have to watch any of his tape to be able to make this assessment. So much of the Ravens running game is this QB read option business. and he has to learn how to hold the ball and let Lamar take it without fumbling every time. And by my calculation, he will have approximately 13 minutes before week 1 to practice it based on COVID regulations. So I think he's going to suck at it. And I don't think that that's his fault. Like, it just takes time. And so I'm just like not worried about him being a huge factor in this offense until he masters that. Um, and he either will eventually or maybe he won't. He could not even ever do that viable. Like, it's not an easy thing to do. Mark Ingram should be highly praised on a non-draft specific podcast that we'll do later, where we celebrate that skill set. But I'm just not that worried about him. He's great. He might be a great Raven for a while, but I don't think this year he's going to be a problem for me personally. But I'm glad you're happy.
I agree. This year, like you said, he's icing this year at the very least.
Yeah, you got to play them because they have such short lifespans, and you don't sign these people to second contracts. So they'll figure something out, and hopefully he'll figure out that mesh point or whatever and get it so that they can both have the ball and then only one and no one drops it. But until that point, it's the least of my concerns.
All right, moving on to the first of 4 picks in the 3rd round for the Baltimore Ravens.
Unbelievable.
From listener Gary, breaking news. Ravens propel past the Steelers on a last-minute J.K. Dobbins 75-yard touchdown run.
Yeah, if that happened...
Minka to the face onto the
if
ground.
That, like... that Minka will have caught him, first of all, in order for him to do that stiff arm. He could maybe do that to Terrell Edmonds. Maybe. He's strong, dude. He could apply a stiff arm to a Steeler this year. That's viable. But that Steeler will have caught him from behind, I promise.
Moving on. The first pick of 4 in the 3rd round is a defensive tackle interior pass rush specialist, Justin Madubuike?
There's still Joey. This was supposed to be a Steeler.
There's still some uncertainty in Baltimore about how to pronounce that name. I mean, this guy's just another home run pick. Brandon Williams and Michael Pierce are both run stuffers, but it's been a weakness for the Ravens, not getting the push up the middle. A lot of people talk about Calais Campbell and his defensive presence on the line, but I think because Calais Campbell is such a ogre of a human that people don't realize he's very, very much an edge guy. Just because he's not your stereotype Von Miller, Joey Bosa, TJ Watt, smaller guy. But so last year he played 81% of his snaps on the edge rather than inside, Calais Campbell. So this is a need that the Ravens filled with a guy that just wreaks havoc up the middle. Gets a lot of pressure. Like Chad said, he wishes he was a Steeler. It's a great pick. I don't have a ton to say about him. There's not a whole lot to say as far as
I have stuff to say. I have stuff
interior
to say
D lineman. Please do.
To Kevin Colbert. Should have traded back in the 2nd round, so we could have had some 3rd round picks and sort of got some of these players we talked about on the pre-draft podcast. There's a lot of talent in these rounds. Having a lot of picks was going to be very fruitful. One of our teams got lots of picks. One of our teams got a lot of fruit. My team got a little bit of fruit. It's all very tasty fruit. Is not this fruit. We needed a nose tackle. Justin Madubuike is definitely qualified. He's very quick. He needs a little bit of work to handle double teams, which is going to be a big issue because Ravens nose tackles' job is to handle double teams. So here's another guy that I think it's okay to be excited about him, but in a refined and cautious way, because they're going to change his understanding of what he's supposed to do probably. And they'll maximize his talents too with the pass rushing and stuff. But in a lot of situations where they have a nose tackle on the field, he's going to need to absorb a double team without getting washed out of the play. And that is a weakness in his game right now. So be excited, but temper. And the Steelers would have needed that too. So I'm not saying that that's a problem for the Ravens and the Steelers would have just had an all pro right away. This is something he was going to have to deal with wherever. Stuff that I noticed on his tape, he wins the line of, usually he does it with his quickness. He's got a great like first step, and he gets his hands on people, and he can redefine the line of scrimmage on a play, which is great because that means you get tackles for losses and stuff because you're getting blocked behind where the line of scrimmage was. So that's great. And he has power. So once he gets his hands on you, even though he's not great with double teams, with a single blocker, he can push you. He can push you and control you. And then he keeps his eyes up so he can get off the block and make tackles. You see him do it a lot where he pushes his lineman into the backfield and breaks up a running play, gets off the block and makes a tackle. So he's really great when he is single teamed. And the Ravens do have a lot of big linemen that are better than him. So he might get a lot of single teams and be able to make some plays when he's on the field. And then the last thing that I loved, this guy's got some heart to him. He's got a motor. He keeps playing. There were 2 highlights from the same game. They played Arkansas, Texas A&M. And in the first highlight, they were in the red zone, and he got double teamed and he got pushed way out of the play. And then he circled back like 5 yards deep, almost to the goal line. And he kind of filtered into the middle of the field, and the quarterback threw a pass, didn't see him, and it got deflected into his arms, and he caught it for an interception. And it wasn't like an especially great, play in terms of what his job normally should have been, but he stayed in the play. He kept himself involved, for seconds and seconds and seconds, where many, many big people would have kind of been like, well, get him next time. And he ended up making an interception, which was a big play. And later in that game, and that was on the goal line, that changed points. Points changed hands because of that. And later in the game, he had a pass rush where he got around a blocker and the quarterback washed out to the right like Baker always does. And he got so excited that he fell down. He fell on his knees, but then he was able to right himself and get back up and then chase the quarterback for a sack. So again, just like, I really liked his heart and his effort. Even when a couple of those plays didn't go right, he kind of stuck with it. And I think that'll go well for him, especially early in his career when he's learning, just to have that kind of high effort, high competitive edge, to keep himself involved in the play. I think the Ravens will like that, and I think that'll be good for him. So I'm excited about him. And I guess I'll just have to root against him, but I'll, on some Sundays, 14 weeks a year, I'll probably be cheering for him to do pretty well.
All right. Well, we will keep it moving to, we'll try to keep it a little briefer as we get deeper in the draft here. With the 92nd pick overall, the Ravens picked wide receiver from Texas, Devin Duvernay. He was their number 1 receiver. Chances are in the NFL he's going to be more of a slot guy. And the big story in Baltimore coming out of here was this guy is Anquan Boldin, Derek Mason-esque as far as his mentality. That's the type of leader, captain type of character that he has. And he said in his introduction presser Zoom call thing that he looked up to Steve Smith Sr. growing up a lot as far as what he brings there. So
another serious man.
Yeah. So you're talking about a dog. And he did everything for Texas. If you watch his highlight tapes, he goes deep a ton for Texas. They did a really scheming him open with route combinations and things like that. Um, but you don't see a ton of drops, and
Yeah, that's because there were three.
that's something that we'll talk about again. Um, so it seems like the Ravens drafted two wide receivers, and it seems like the Titans game was potentially weighing very heavily on their mind with some of the dropsies that they had in that playoff game. That was just one of many things that doomed the Ravens in the playoffs this year. So this is great. He's probably competing for like the fourth wide receiver spot as we stand right now, but room to grow. I mean, third round draft pick. This was a acknowledged as a very deep wide receiver draft. So this is a great pick. I like it a lot.
Yeah, he had 3 drops on 128 targets. Just so you guys all know, that's really good. Now in the highlights, he also was kind of scouted to have like very good after the catch abilities. For me, in the highlights, I was underwhelmed by both of those things. I thought his catch radius was not
Yeah.
something to celebrate. He made a lot of catches in his body, but he didn't drop them, so that's fine. And I thought after the catch, he was kind of more tough than elusive. He's the kind of guy that always falls forward. When he was thrown the ball open with momentum, he's fast. He can really get going, but it takes him a minute. So if he's on like a comeback route and you throw him the ball and he's got half a second, he'll take 2 steps and get tackled. Like, he doesn't get up to speed right off the bat. But he can catch through contact. He's comfortable working the middle of the field and catching the ball, knowing he's going to get hit. And he's got speed. Like he can go, he can take the top off the defense if, he'll probably have to learn to get pass press coverage. But if you let him get going, he's probably faster than you. So yeah, he's a good pick, probably.
Yeah.
He's a guy that I heard a lot about from Steelers Depot as a potential Steeler. So I, again, was getting excited about him as a possible Steeler. And then I saw his name on the Ravens, and I was just like, all right, well, great. That's just great.
As the Steelers wait for their second pick.
Yeah, my emotions are going to balance out on this pick later. I'm going to try not to ruin the surprise, but I'm okay with it now. I was much more disappointed when I first saw they made this pick than after watching his highlights. I think he's pretty good, but I'm not over the moon about him.
Yeah, I mean, he's a third round receiver, that means, guys you draft in the third round, you're not expecting them to start. If they can contribute and grow, like, that's great. A couple picks later, the Ravens made everything happy in the linebacker room of my brain, and they drafted Malik Harrison. They drafted the yin to Patrick Queen's yang. Um, Malik Harrison is like your hard nosed, downhill, run defense linebacker. Like, he's got more of the size that you expect in a traditional linebacker. He's a tackling machine. He played in the Big Ten on Ohio State's defense, and he kind of evens out the Patrick Queen thing. And I think the two of them together, if they can find the field together eventually, can be like a really interesting, like, weak, strong, dynamic duo of linebackers. I will give you a little bit of history on the Ravens drafting the same position twice in the draft. Most recently, Hayden Hurst was drafted in the first round. Later on in that draft, the Ravens drafted Mark Andrews. Pretty good tight end. Pretty good duo there, but pretty good tight end in the second pick there. A few years before that, the Ravens drafted Ed Dickson early in the draft, and then later on day 2 of the draft, they drafted Dennis Pitta, who was the predecessor to Mark Andrews in the long line of white Ravens tight ends. And most notably, about 15 years ago, I'm ballparking here because I don't know how long they've been in the league, the Ravens drafted Ben Grubbs, offensive guard. I think he went to Georgia from the SEC. Went on to have a Pro Bowl career. After his first contract, he went to Atlanta. He started for many years for them. Um, you know who the Ravens drafted? Another offensive guard by the name of Marshall Yanda, future Hall of Famer. Wasn't even the first offensive guard drafted by his own team in his own draft class. Um, so that's a little bit of sunshine and positive thoughts for Malik Harrison. This guy's no joke. He played on a national championship contender in a hard nosed defensive conference. And I do think that he's sneaky athletic. And Eric DeCosta said he believes he can become a 3 down linebacker, even though he maybe is more of a situational guy right now. So Malik Harrison, I love the pick.
Yeah, I was really excited to watch his highlight tape, and it was kind of boring in the best way possible.
Yeah.
Like running back, 2 yard gain, running back, 1 yard loss, running back.
Yeah.
But then like 3, 4 times during that 7 minutes, a running back would just see Malik Harrison and be like, "I'm coming to get you." And you know what happened every time? Malik Harrison ran that fool over, and it was awesome. like like Malik Harrison will take a smart running back that wants to go home and eat his meal with a fork and knife, and he'll wrap him up when they try to run away from him, and he'll just make a nice sound football play. But when those crazy fools that make big mental mistakes come and they try to run at him, he will knock them out. It is awesome. He is a stone cold killer at full speed. I think he likes it too. You can't see through the face mask, but I think that that's what he wants. Like, I think he wants a running back to run full speed at him. I think it's where he gets most of his joy during a football game, is when that fool has a momentary blackout and thinks that he's having a good idea. Um, it didn't happen very often, but I think he loved it every time it did. So, yeah, as far as run defenders go, I think he's going to be a fun guy to watch.
Yeah. Next, the last pick of the third round. Finally, we've been in the third round for fucking 40 minutes. Tyree Phillips. He is an offensive tackle from. Yeah, I knew it was a Southern Mississippi State. Will probably be a guard. The way that he translates in the NFL, he said that he wants to compete for the right guard spot. So, in his introductory press conference, he said all he wants is to be involved in the competition to fill Marshall Yanda's shoes. And I mean, that's great to hear. I guess Eric DeCosta said John Harbaugh really liked and pushed for this draft pick. He interviewed him at the combine. He's a big physical offensive lineman. Physicality's kind of his calling card. And that's perfect. You know, the Ravens, the type of offense that they run, the run heavy offensive linemen tend to thrive. They want to run the ball. They want to be the aggressors in the trenches. And I think that he'll fit right in, and expect to see him in the, you know, in the, what's the word I'm looking for? In the
Rotation?
mix. The rotation. Thank you. Look at it. We'd be a good charades team. In the
Chemistry.
rotation in the preseason, as the Ravens search for the replacement for Marshall Yanda.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited about him because I think he reminds me a little bit of Kevin Dotson, the 4th round pick of the Steelers, that I of course think is better than him, but that, you know, they both could end up being really good. They're both kind of projects. The one thing about Tyree that I don't think you mentioned, he only played football for 3 years of his life before he went to college. So if he's as good as he's going to get, that's pretty disappointing. Like, he should be able to get like a lot better, just by being coached by smart people. Yeah, he's physical. You know why? Because he's 6'5", 330 pounds. I'm 5'8", 150. Turns out I'm clever. You know
Not
why?
as
Because I
physical.
can't win fights. Can't win fights. So here we are, all playing to our strengths today. Yeah, I'm. This guy's fun. He's going to be a fun guy that I'm gonna try to remember his name for 2 years from now when he's actually possibly going to be in the starting lineup. But good for him.
Also, and it'll be a little something I come back to later. Those of you that are like fiending for sports, um, there's a documentary series on Netflix called Last Chance U. It follows a couple different junior colleges around. Tyree Phillips is a Last Chance U alum, so he
Ah,
played on one of those Eastern Mississippi Community College teams for uh, Buddy, whatever his name was, the
no
big fat
kidding.
Southern coach. So yeah, pretty cool. I follow a Twitter page called like Last Chance U alum, and on the Sunday after the draft when all the guys were getting like UDFA signings and stuff, it was pretty cool.
That
So
is neat. Well, let's
so good story
hopefully
too.
make the squad. He could be a 6 offensive lineman, first guy in. If he can play tackle and guard,
Yeah,
that's a route to making the 53 or 56 or however many people they let on a football team this year.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, we'll see. I'm very excited to see if he ends up how he ends up comparing to Kevin Dotson. I think those are two guys with parallel tracks to their careers starting out.
yeah. And then the Ravens doubled up on offensive linemen with the next pick. It was the 143rd overall. Uh, they drafted guard Ben Bredesen from Michigan. So he'll be another guy that gets in there and gets in some competition. He's got the Harbaugh connection, so the Ravens probably were able to get a little bit of inside scoop on Ben Bredesen from Jim, who coached him at Michigan. Um, he's tough. I mean, he's a Big Ten interior offensive lineman. Like that's kind of what you expect. Um, his mom shows dogs, um, and notably won second place at a competition and went home and threw out the medal. So that's the type of competitive atmosphere that Ben Bredesen grew up in. So I'd anticipate that he holds his own in training camp in the preseason here,
Those dogs must be really
uh,
happy.
and we'll see.
God
We'll see how
dang.
that goes, but he'll just be another guy competing for that guard spot, and it's very possible that he prevails in that competition too.
I like it because I think he and Tyree are going to rub off on each other. They're kind of strong in different areas. Bredesen's a little bit undersized, but he's super smart, super um, good technique. Although and most of this is stuff that I read from Dane Brugler because his highlights were a little harder to find. Um, he's got very good hand speed, little slower in the lower body. His feet aren't always caught up with his upper body, but you never see a play where he's not on a block. He doesn't like miss assignments. He doesn't take plays off where there isn't stuff. He finds somebody to block every play. Um, so I kind of like the idea of him and Tyree learning together because Tyree is just a big physical presence, and Bredesen maybe more of mental and technical presence. Make them roommates and see who comes out on top.
Right on. That was it. Only one pick in the fourth round. What the hell's going
Boring.
on? So a few picks later, the Ravens drafted another interior defensive lineman, Broderick Washington from Texas Tech. So he was down there in Texas Tech trying to keep linemen off of Jordan Brooks so he could get a fucking zillion tackles. Um, he was described as a dirt dog. I
Because he falls
saw
down a lot.
I saw an Andrew Billings comp. Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, we'll see what he can become. He's 6'2", 305, so he's kind of a shorter, stouter guy. And he's a run stuffer. That's what he did at Texas Tech, and so I think best case scenario, uh, once Pierce and or Williams can't can't be afforded anymore. Hopefully, Broderick Washington is around maybe to fill those shoes a little bit.
Couple notes on him. mostly positive. He's a two-time team captain, junior and senior year, so that's always good. That's the type of player that every team needs a few of those types of guys in the locker room just to sustain that good culture and work. And my first note about his tape was that it wasn't extraordinary. So take these next few compliments with a grain of salt, because this isn't a guy that like, holy moly, he's like killing everybody. But I did notice that he really keeps his feet moving throughout the play, which when you're super big, taking on double teams, it's probably really easy to just anchor and lean. Um, but he really drives. He drives like a good running back who's trying to push the pile for a first down. I like that. I like that he's never like satisfied he's gained. I'm not saying that he pushes hit the double team into the quarterback for a sack very often or anything, but I think it's going to be good for him as he continues to get stronger in terms of controlling the line of scrimmage and not letting himself get beat by big strong guys or two big strong guys at a time. I like the way that he moves his feet. Um, he's actually got surprising closing speed. The few times that he did get free to go after the quarterback, I was pretty impressed with like how quickly he closed for the sack or play. So I'm not saying that he is a fast player, but I think if he is 3 steps away from someone that he can tackle, like he's gonna make those 3 steps. He won't look like a fool doing it. He's got that going for him. And based on those traits, he'd probably be the starting nose tackle for the Steelers. So, way to get another guy that the Steelers need. Second one. And Steelers still hadn't done it yet. So, that's just another guy that they could have used, but they didn't have enough picks. So, suck it, Trebek.
Speaking of guys the Steelers could have used, the Ravens' next pick was James Prochet, wide receiver from Southern Methodist University. Led the FBS in catches last year with 112. And over his career at SMU, we talked about Duvernay and his lack of drops. James Prochet had 9 drops in 478 targets in college. So that's the Ravens again, valuing these possession guys. Um, that's his calling card. He's a hands guy. Um, I don't have much more to say about him. He
Yeah. Well, then shut up.
Go ahead.
Hot take of the podcast from me. You heard it here first. James Prochet passes Devin Duvernay on the depth chart within 1 week of them being on the same team. The first thing I noticed was that these two guys are doing the same stuff for their teams when I was watching the highlights. So I wrote all my notes on James Prochet in comparison to Duvernay. Note 1, this dude's a circus catcher. He's constantly jumping over defensive backs and reaching and taking the ball from them. He did it at least 4 times where an underthrown ball, he jumped over and took the ball away from the defensive back. Not only does he not drop the ball, but he makes crazy catches. He makes crazy circus catches.
We're worried more about overthrown balls in Baltimore, to be honest. But
well, it's all about the radius. Yeah. It's the radius. He's got it. And for the record, these two people are the same size. They're like 5'10", 200 pounds. They're the same person.
There's a little foreshadowing there when you were talking about Duvernay's catch radius.
Yes, this is all very deliberate. I am playing chess over here. He's very quick to get to speed. Like when he catches the ball from a stop, he gets going very quickly and he actually breaks tackles. You very rarely see the first defender tackle him. So as he's getting up to speed, he will often break that first tackle, whereas Duvernay would gain yards, but I don't think he often broke that first tackle. And I think he's better. Like, I just think he's a better player. Like, I was very excited to watch this guy's tape. It was very fun in all the ways. And, like, maybe Duvernay's better and I'm just shallow and, like, I got caught by the glittery stuff. But, like, I just think he does a lot of big deal things better than Duvernay does. And I think they're similar players. So I think he's just going to pass him on the depth chart. I think you're looking at the Ravens' new number 3. wide receiver,
Woo,
James Crochet.
woo.
That's what I'm saying. I think
Yeah,
he's got rookie of the year potential for the team, like team rookie of the year impact type of ability, in my
yeah,
opinion.
they are definitely very, very similar wide receivers. Um, that's really good analysis. And then the last pick of the Ravens draft, which might be the best value of any draft pick the
You
Ravens
just had to
made,
say value one more time, did you? You just had to one more time with the value.
was team captain, second team All Big Ten safety, Geno Stone from Iowa.
Fourth team, all academic, Big Ten.
Who had a lot higher um, draft, I guess, like estimate before the combine. He had very low spark score. He ran a 4.62. Um, so we'll see. He was a production guy, basically. He was a team leader at Iowa, so he's a high character guy, even though he didn't show out at the combine. Um, I mean, it's your seventh round pick, in an already exemplary secondary. Like his likelihood of making the Ravens is pretty low, but maybe he can have a good preseason and catch on somewhere else, or snag a practice squad spot, or be a special teamer.
Tell you right now, if he gets dropped by the Ravens and the Steelers don't make a waiver claim, I will be blown away. And let me tell you why. I don't think he's going to play one snap on defense this year for the Ravens. But if you read his scouting report, they say that he reads the backfield almost to his detriment. Actually, it's both like a strength and a weakness. Sometimes he gets caught reading the quarterback and lets people get behind him, but he reads the backfield and then he aggressively pursues the play after dissecting it. And he's very smart, so he usually makes the right decision. And that's what his highlight tape is. It's him from a safety position, seeing a play develop, and then attacking it downhill. He's jumping routes to make interceptions. He's blowing up wide receiver bubble screens. He's collapsing plays all the time. And to me, amateur analyst Chad, who does very large scale judgments on very small amounts of evidence, I think that if you can dissect a play well from the backfield, in the backfield as a safety, you're set up very well to do a really good job on kick coverage. So I expect him to immediately make the Ravens as their new special teams ace. He's the guy.
There you
And that's
go.
why, and I think that that's what teams like the Ravens do in the later portions of the draft. They try and find athletes that don't think they're too good for that kind of stuff. But that they just want to be on the team and they'll do what it takes. This guy will do that stuff. I project. I mean, he won't, but he could be on the Steelers as a special teamer. So yeah, cut him. I dare you.
So that was the Ravens draft. But the Ravens weren't done. The Ravens got busy fast on Sunday night when the draft was over. Twitter was ablaze with undrafted free agent signings. I'll touch on a couple before we really dig deep on one. The Ravens signed another safety, which muddies the waters for old Geno Stone, Nigel Warrior, who that's a all-time name team wearing Warrior on the back of your shirt. He is a safety for Tennessee.
Stone's pretty
First
good
team
too.
all SEC safety. I mean, come on. Undrafted free agent. I didn't read up on him at all. I don't know why he went undrafted. Seems like the first team all SEC safety should have been drafted. But Nigel Warrior, remember the name. The Ravens also picked up Chauncey Rivers. The only reason he's really of note, he's a Mississippi State teammate of Tyree Phillips, and also a Last Chance U alumni. So he was actually featured a little more in Last Chance U, He's a defensive end. So that's a cool connection. You can actually watch Last Chance U and like see Chauncey Rivers, like struggling in English class at a junior college, trying to get his grades up so he can transfer to a real school. So that's pretty cool. And then I'll let Chad introduce the last undrafted free agent that we're going to talk about.
This is a riddle, but
Okay.
you know the answer. Who can do 35 bench presses of 225 pounds, run a 4.48 second 48-yard dash, coming in at 6 foot 0, 230 pounds, and yet average 8.1 yards per carry over the course of his senior season?
Who, Chad?
Bronson Rechsteiner of Kennesaw State. He's a running back / fullback. I'm going to talk about what I love about. Should we talk about his family first, or what we like about his team?
bloodline?
Do you talk about the bloodline?
We absolutely can. Bronson Rechsteiner is the son of former WWE superstar and member of the Steiner Brothers World Championship Tag Team Rick Steiner, nephew of the more notable Scott Steiner, aka Big Papa Pump. And he kind of looks like Big Papa Pump, to be honest. The dude's got guns.
All right. So he has already said that after his NFL career is over, he wants to be a wrestler. So those of you who don't know, I think wrestling is stupid, and Joey loves it. We don't hold either of that against each other. But it is pretty amazing. This guy's highlight film is a wrestling promo video. It opens with him in a tank top with a big, probably real chain around his neck, flexing for a few minutes while some hard heavy metal song gets going. And then it is 3.5 minutes of the best college football highlights you'll ever watch in your whole life.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a little bit about this guy. So he's a fullback / running back. He lines up in the 3-point stance every play. So he's behind the quarterback in the 3-point stance. Like, what is this guy doing? But then I realized it's genius because you can't see him. You can't see what he's doing. So he's back there in the 3-point stance just plotting his revenge. And you know what? He's taking revenge because every time he doesn't get the ball, he picks a blocker and he drives them out of the football field. It's either the back of the end zone or out of the sideline or off the camera. Like, he is not happy with the block until you're on your back or you're out of the county. It is amazing. And this guy is a fullback. So what do you think his expertise is in the running game? Let me tell you, Joey, it's super long touchdown runs of 40 to 80 yards. This guy somehow keeps breaking free and running away. And I don't want to make fun of fat people right now, but if you've ever seen at recess, like a kind of chubby person run as fast as they can, and they really trying hard, you'll see their arch back forward. Their back arches, and their belly kind of like sticks out because they're arching, and they're standing up so straight, and like that's how he runs when he gets really going. Like, his back arches way so his belly's sticking out, and he's like super vertical, and he's pumping his arms, and it is the most amazing cute.
And he's doing this number, and everybody else has given up on the play, but he's still running as fast as he can until he gets to that goal line.
Yeah, just that back arch was classic to me. I was like, I've never seen someone who's so much more athletic than me look so not athletic. But that run, like, I cannot die having lived a fulfilling, complete life until I see him do that in the NFL. It can be a preseason game. I just need to see that back arch. I need to see him trying to run away from Geno Stone. That's fine. Like, you know,
Inter squad scrimmage, yeah.
yeah. Who's my Steelers new guy? Brooks. I forgot his name
Antoine
already.
Brooks.
Antoine Brooks. It can be against the Steelers. He can be running away from Antoine Brooks. That's fine. That'll be funny. I love this kid. I can't wait to see in the preseason Patrick Ricard and Bronson Rechsteiner on the field at the same time. I don't know how you do it.
Yes.
I don't care how you do it.
Oh,
I
dude, heavy
want
package. Let's go.
ultra heavy, super heavy. I
Ricard
don't
lead blocking for Rechsteiner.
put
Oh
him like
yeah.
on each side of Lamar and he can run either direction, whatever. Like this this is great stuff. Of all the players that we're going to spend a lot of time talking about all the way until final cuts that Justin is going to be super bored with, this is our guy this year.
Yeah.
And then the Ravens are going to cut him. Sorry, Bronson. I hope they don't. I really do. And then we'll have spent collectively 3.5 or 4 hours talking about a guy that didn't even make the team. And I can't wait.
He's going to be, I guess for me, I was, Ulysses Gilbert was like everywhere in the preseason for the Steelers last year. I was like,
We're going to
Ulysses
talk about him.
Gilbert's
No,
awesome.
I promise we're going to talk about him. He's a classic second year type of guy. So Steelers have lack of depth there, and we're not going to talk about that this episode, but I'm glad you remembered his name.
My last guy thing on Bronson Rechsteiner was I was like, oh man, like this guy's a personality. He's got the wrestling thing going on. Let me pull up his Twitter. And I pulled up his Twitter and I stopped at the very first thing that I came to because the most recent thing that he tweeted out was a Mike Allstott highlight tape. I was like, hell yes, I'm all the way in now.
That's good because he needs to learn how to run like Mike Allstott ran,
Yeah.
which is, I don't know. He might have arched his back a little like that too, honestly, when he got going.
Yeah, I can see it.
So very exciting draft from top to bottom, honestly. You got a fun collection of players to root for from your heart and your mind. A lot of practical excitement, team improvement, and a lot of just fun.
Yeah, yeah, it's going to be a fun year. Pretty pleased with the Ravens draft. Hopefully, this football season happens. I don't know.
They'll
So
play. They'll do something.
let's take a little trip around the league here. Where do you want to go to first?
I don't care. I was pretty excited to make fun of the Patriots, but we don't have to do that right away.
Okay,
But
well
we can.
let's go to the NFC East first.
Okay.
So, one of the more probably lauded drafts of anybody was the Dallas Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
Jerry Jones sitting there with all his kids that look just like him on his yacht in the middle of the ocean, just cucking the Philadelphia Eagles left and right. Basically, is how his draft went. They started their draft with C.D. Lamb, so they added C.D. Lamb to Zeke Elliott and Amari Cooper and Randall Cobb and Dak Prescott, who's still waiting on his payday, or maybe Andy Dalton. I don't know. I don't know if we talked about that yet, even.
Andy Dalton's on the Cowboys, people.
So,
Covered
Michael
it.
Gallup, I mean, so yeah, I mean, they drafted that edge guy from Utah, Anai. He's a nice little player. Jerry Jones likes his edge D lineman guys. So I think they had a really good draft.
Yeah, they got Trayvon Diggs, Stephon
Yep,
Diggs' brother, who's
Alabama.
he's a big guy, so he's probably going to be a pretty good press coverage cornerback. And they got Neville Gallimore, who is another defensive tackle that should start for the Steelers. There were lots of them. It's if you'd have just rolled the dice, the Steelers probably would have ended up with one, but they somehow didn't. Um, and he's actually got a lot of really. He's not as good as Javon Hargrave was coming out, but he's close, and he's got a lot of similar capabilities in terms of the pass rush, but also still ability to hold up in the middle of the line. So yeah, the top of the Cowboys draft looks really good. My kind of note about them is that they let it come to them. CeeDee Lamb fell to them and they didn't turn it down. Trayvon Diggs was in the second round, and some people talked about him as kind of a back end first round type of corner. And Neville Gallimore was projected to possibly go around or so ahead of where they got him in the third round. So Jerry Jones isn't known for this type of discipline. So I guess that's what happens when you're on a boat. You're not focused on the draft, and you let things happen. So,
there you go. They got the boat vibes.
Time on his $75 million yacht.
Yeah.
And it feels like a chore, Jerry. Should we talk about any of the other teams? I mean, the Eagles.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting the Giants had a solid draft. They didn't do anything incredibly flashy. We already applauded the Andrew Thomas pick when it happened, when we were watching the draft live.
No, we didn't.
I'm pretty sure we did.
Okay. I thought he was maybe like the third best tackle, and they had the choice of all of them. So
yeah, but I think he was the most ready now, as far as like technique goes. And
yeah, I'm not like crapping on it or anything. I'm just.
And then they got Xavier McKinney.
God, he's gonna be so good.
Yeah.
He's.
So yeah, they had a solid draft. They're another team that had a buttload. They had 4 7th-round draft picks,
and they took another offensive tackle in the 3rd round. So if they're both decent players, then all of a sudden that offensive line is, darn good.
And you've got Saquon,
young quarterback, and Saquon, quads Barkley. So I'd say that it mostly hinges on the tackles. I'm sure Xavier McKinney is going to be a good player. If at least one of those tackles is above average, then I'd say you call it a pretty solid job on the Giants.
Yeah. And then we can talk about the Eagles next.
Jalen Reagor.
Maybe the reach of the first round, behind Ruggs.
Well, behind the guy that the Raiders took next, actually, that corner.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Did you forget his name?
Yeah, I did.
Guess what? We all did. Turns out. Jalen Reagor, it's tricky because there's so many of these really good wide receivers, and he seems like a reach maybe, but he probably wasn't going to be there when it came back around. So if they like him, they like him. He's like crazy good with the ball in his hands. He's kind of that return kicks, break tackles, CeeDee Lamb light kind of player. So, we'll see if he turns out. I mean, he doesn't even really have to be that good, and he'll still start for the Eagles. They're a mess.
Yeah, they can't catch anything.
And then we couldn't just have one team pulling shenanigans. So the Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts, Mel Kiper's future Steeler, in the 2nd round. Wrong Pennsylvania team, Kiper. You were close. What do you think of this? What do you think of this business with Hurts?
I don't even know. So I guess Carson's entering his 4th season. He's been hurt a lot. I presume we're gonna have some competition. I mean, a 2nd-round quarterback, like, I don't know. Is it open? I don't know if they've declared open competition in Philly, but there basically
can't be. There's not a competition. Come on now. This is in case he gets hurt, right?
I mean, quarterback in the 2nd round. I don't know, man.
I just feel like, they can't. He's not better. He's not better than Carson Wentz. This is an injury contingency, right?
Best ability. That's right. is availability.
Oh, come on, man.
um,
Uh, I don't think it's as ridiculous as the Packers because they
oh
didn't trade
no,
up. They didn't trade up. It wasn't the first round, and their quarterback has a serious injury history. Even so, though, the Eagles, I don't know. Like Jalen Hurts? Really? I guess. I guess. I don't. It's always just so attention grabbing when a team takes a quarterback high.
yeah,
I guess that's what it is. It's like I feel like I have to be like, oh, what? But it
yeah,
actually, like, the more I think about it, the more it's like, well, yeah, their quarterback's got injury history. He's towards the end of his contract. That's kind of what you do. And the Eagles won a Super Bowl by having a capable backup. I guess that's okay, but it doesn't make them better this year, and they really could use some secondary help.
yeah. And they got Kayvon Wallace later, safety from Clemson, but that's it in the secondary, the whole draft long. So
Yeah. And then you got the potatoes. Drafted
yeah,
second overall. They got the best football player. Everybody knows it. You don't compare, okay, people. We don't compare different positions. But Chase Young's the best football player.
we don't
He's the best.
see we don't see positions. We are not
Exactly.
positionists. That's
Nope.
right.
So they got Chase Young. He's the best football player in the whole draft. Everybody knows it. Best one.
Yep.
Um, so that's great. And it was very tempting for them not to do that. You know that they were tempted to trade back, take the that was difficult,
Tua was calling.
and just
Daniel Snyder was like, "Oh, think of all the jerseys and T-shirts I could sell."
that's right, that's right. And then this is a guy that's really interesting, Antonio Gibson. He's like a slash player. He's like a Randall L or a Hines Ward or something. Like he played wide receiver, running back, at Memphis. I don't really know what he's going to do for Washington, which kind of makes me think that maybe he's not going to be on the team very long because they're the type like. And I'm going to be nice to Washington in a second. They got Chase Young, that was good, but I just kind of feel like this is the type of player that they're going to misuse, and he's not going to fit at all. But if they use him right, he's really interesting. He's obviously good with the ball in his hands because he can play running back and he can catch. So spread him out and do some clever stuff. And then wide receiver, Washington's on a little tear here after drafting McLaurin last year. They nabbed this guy, Antonio Gandy Golden, out of Liberty. Liberty. Liberty.
Liberty,
And
liberty.
that's right. And everybody loves this guy. Everybody does. He's got body control. Do you know why, Joey?
That's right, ladies.
Ex gymnast. He's on those rings. He's on that balance beam. Then you throw him a football. He doesn't care. He catches it. Dismount. It's all good. So this is a multi-sport athlete with coordination and skills. So, and he's like their fourth round pick. So that's sneaky. That's a sneaky little move by the Redskin potatoes. So I think they should be kind of excited about these young kids. Their team stinks. Don't
Yeah,
get too
horribly.
excited. Settle down. Settle down
Dwayne
right now,
Haskins.
Roddy.
I mean, come on, guys.
Settle down right now, Roddy. I know that you're still a Redskins fan somewhere down there in your heart. So fun. I would say that the Cowboys win. They were already a strong team, and they just got a lot of value. They got a lot of value. This is the Ravens podcast, so we're celebrating value today.
Yeah, I think I'd probably go Cowboys, Giants, racial slurs, Eagles, as far as who had the best to worst there. The Eagles draft was, I don't know, it just seemed at every turn Jerry Jones was butt fucking the Eagles.
You could just see every single one of their players being a mess. Like I didn't even write them all down, but they got like a super fast linebacker from Colorado, but he's not very smart. So he could just be bad, you know. And then they got this Prince Tega Wanugo guy that like I think people just like saying his name, but he got injured a lot in college. He played for Auburn, but like if he doesn't get injured, he could be like really good. So you're thinking like Makai Becton Light here, you know, just a very talented, but you know those guys, you know, sometimes those guys just don't work out.
Yeah.
So you could very easily have the Eagles reach for a guy that isn't that good, have a quarterback that never sees the field, and then have just some guys that aren't good. And you're like, well,
Oops.
blew it.
Yeah.
Oh, over. So yeah, I didn't like their draft very much.
All right, let's move on to the AFC East so we
Do we
can
still have
talk.
time? YouTube cuts us off.
When? I don't think so.
Hour and a half.
All right, we got 10 minutes to talk about the AFC East. Let's get it in. We'll save
Let's do the Patriots.
we'll save the Tampa Bay Gronkaneers for later. It's the tease of the century.
There's
right.
a lot of good stuff here in the division, but I really, really want to make fun of the Patriots. So we
Let's
have to do
talk
that
about
first.
the Patriots. The Patriots had no draft picks on day one.
They're so smart. Dude, Bill Belichick is so smart that he took the best wide receiver class in a generation and the worst tight end class in years, and he actually mixed them up because he didn't draft any wide receivers, but he drafted 2 tight ends in the third round. So I think he's playing super space 4-dimensional checkers right now. And the Patriots, you heard it here first. They're officially bad.
So, what's this guy's name?
Kyle Duggar.
Duggar. That's right. Is Kyle Duggar from the Lenoir-Rhyne Bears the most Patriots pick ever? For like their first pick in the draft? Like some small school safety? I'm like, yo, you couldn't trade back and still get Kyle Duggar from NCAA Division II South Atlantic Conference, Lenoir-Rhyne?
He was Dane Brugler's second-rated safety in the draft. So I don't know, but he is a very Patriots pick. You know, he's
so Patriots.
He's like a crazy athlete, but you know he's obviously going to take some teaching. You know, the NFL game, even during a pandemic, is going to be like 36 times faster than whatever was going on at Quoth the Raven Lenoir. Yeah, they took a lot of projects. Their next pick in the second round was Josh Uche, who's an edge rusher out of Florida, who's super athletic. But again, he's going to need refining. You know, like he's probably going to play outside linebacker, so he's going to have to learn to drop into coverage and do some things that he isn't used to doing very much of.
Oh, I forgot about this pick. Yeah, when I see the Pats pick guys, because it's very rare they make like splash picks. Usually if they're like in position to make a splash pick, they just fucking trade back and then take no names. Every guy that I've seen here is like, oh, okay, this guy replaces that guy. Okay, this guy replaces, and I more see them as like roles, especially defensive guys, like for Belichick. It's like, oh, okay, this linebacker from Michigan, like he is Van Noy. Like Belichick's just gonna make him Van Noy. Like Duggar, like, oh, fucking Belichick's just gonna make him into whatever safety that's not a McCourty twin they just lost. Like
Chung, is
there
he
you
still
go.
on the team?
I don't know. Harmon, is that a guy? I don't know. The
I think that's a
Patriots are
wide
dead.
receiver. They are. I'm telling you. Oh, also,
But I
of
think
note,
so. NFL Live 24 is saying that he thinks I don't know how to say his last name, so I've just been avoiding it the whole time. Josh, the linebacker
Uche.
from Michigan,
Uche.
is going to be a good NFL
Uche.
player, and I think especially in New England, he probably will be. Like Belichick's going to put him in the right positions and pull the strings.
Do you know when these players are going to be good?
next
2022.
year after the Pats
Yeah,
get Trevor
they
Lawrence.
they stink right now. They stink. These players are all like not ready. They and in the
That's
fifth
the
round,
plan. That's the
they
master
took their
plan.
most polished player, a kicker. They took a kicker in the fifth round.
Oh heavens, this guy, the
Yeah,
three percenter.
he's a right winger,
Ugh.
right crazy extremist. He just thought it was military support, people. He just thought he was supporting his military. And his military was all the
The
dudes
people's
that
military.
came to his house and shot at blow up dolls with
Yep.
their AK 47s, pretending that they were defending against the government. That was the military, called a backyard militia.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, I don't know anything about this kid. He's getting the tattoo covered. I didn't really actually intend on getting political with it, but it
He's a
is
hell of a damn
fairly
kicker.
hilarious to win a game once. La-di-da. They could have taken him after the draft. It was bad. Like, dude, the Patriots are bad. They're bad this year. They're bad. They might
Maybe
not be
by
bad for
design.
very long. Maybe, yeah, maybe. Like, they might not be bad for very long. I don't know, but they're bad right now. Right now, they are very not good. Who did well? I actually like the Jets. They got Mekhi Becton.
Yep.
He's an athletic super freak. We talked about him a little when we were talking about the Browns. They got Denzel Mims, another athletic super freak, wide receiver from Baylor. Just crushed the combine. Everybody's very excited about him. He dropped to the second round. And they got Ashton Davis, who's a safety out of USC. This dude is so cool, Joey. To get onto USC's football team, do you know what he did? He walked on to the track team, Joey. He walked onto the track team, made the track team. Then he went to the coach of the football team and was like, dude, how fast am I? Let me walk onto the football team now that I'm on the premises. And he walks onto the football team, and then he ends up getting a scholarship. Dude, this guy has an edge. Ashton Davis, like he is a kid you got to root for. Playing next to Jamal Adams. Am I getting the name right?
Yep.
Crazy. Dude, that could be a killer safety combo. Very excited for the Jets. There's nothing quite as exciting for defensive football as having two excellent safeties. That's really special time in your life as a fan of defensive football. So enjoy that. Enjoy that, Jets fans. And
Yeah,
Miami got Tua.
Ashton Davis was a guy that I really liked pre-draft.
Yeah.
Miami got everybody. They got all kinds of guys. But yeah, most notably Tua, Austin Jackson. They got that corner Noah from Auburn.
Igbenigomede.
Yep, not even going to try that one. They got a defensive tackle from Alabama. He's almost guaranteed to be good.
Yeah, if you want to watch him play, you should watch Kevin Dotson school the pants off him in that sweet video I was telling you guys about.
If you want to watch Kevin Dotson earth move Raekwon Davis all day long.
That's right.
Road great Raekwon Davis. And then the Bills, they got AJ Epinesa. They didn't have a first round pick. I don't really know why.
They only had.
They traded their first rounder for Stephon Diggs. So there you go.
That makes sense. Yeah. I
Jake
like the
Fromm.
players. Jake Fromm is funny because he is, if you imagine, like, who would you want to be a backup for Josh Allen? Let's get the opposite player.
He's exactly the opposite. Yeah.
So that's curious. All they'll have to do is reinvent their entire offensive game. But you can do that. The Ravens did it. So obviously it's not very hard.
There you go. Boom. That's the blueprint.
NBD. The Bills are fine.
All
so
right.
Who's going to win the division?
Who knows, man?
Bills.
The Bills? Yeah,
the
probably
Bills.
the Bills.
No one circles the wagons. Patriots are dead.
The Patriots are dead.
That draft was a joke. What were they doing drafting two tight ends in the third round? What is wrong with them?
Nike was drafting. That's why. Belichick's dog.
Jesus Christ.
All right, so we're up against it on YouTube. We got 24 seconds left. So we're going to sign off for tonight. We will tease the NFC South a little bit longer. We'll see if we can't dig Justin out and brush him off for some Cleveland Browns draft recap shenanigans. And we will see you guys next week.
It's been fun.
Adios.